All right. Well, we have had some amazing matches at the ATP Finals, and Novak Djokovic leads in, I would call, an unlikely group of guys into the semifinals here at the ATP Finals. We're going to jump in and discuss all the matches so far, the fact that Casper Ruud and Taylor Fritz came out of one of the groups, and Djokovic and Andrei Rublev came out of the other group. So we're going to talk about how these guys did it. Was it disappointing for Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Felix, Nadal? It was, but we're going to talk about all of it and what's gone down so far. So thanks for being here. Welcome to The Slice, and let's get into it. All right, so we're in a very chintzy setup, studio setup here. I've got my scarf on, feeling very Euro. And yeah, the tennis has heated up on the indoor hard courts of Turin, slicker, faster, which is good to see. And we've seen a lot of different things that maybe even in the last couple of weeks on the hard court in Paris, Basel, Stockholm, etc., where we've been on the ground. So thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing and getting us over 15K. Next stop 20,000. So thanks for being here and subscribing if you haven't yet. And thanks to BetStamp for presenting The Slice. If you are someone who likes to make a wager, make a bet on the tennis, make sure you're using BetStamp, which is a way that you can compare and contrast the odds coming from the different books, so you can get the best odds for a bet that you want to make. Because why would you get less good odds when you can get better odds for the same bet? No brainer if you're going to bet. So thanks to BetStamp for presenting The Slice. Click the link below to join and use our code. So yeah, ATP Finals, Novak Djokovic today beats Daniil Medvedev, which is always going to be a tricky match. I've been traveling actually home from Europe now, so I haven't been able to see a lot of this live, but I did see the end of the Djokovic Medvedev epic today, which, I mean, that's just vintage, that rivalry, right? They've been very even since 2019. And then Djokovic today, we all saw those clips of him looking like he was going to pass. I don't know what was going on. Looking like he was going to collapse, pass out. He had the shaking arm, like at one point keeled over. Some people call him an absolute warrior. Some people call him a great actor. I just know that he is a warrior. He battled through that. And the way he finished that match in the tiebreaker was just absolutely, vintage Djokovic. Just coming through there, playing lockdown, letting Medvedev make the mistakes, and then finishing it with a pretty crazy back and forth rally where Djokovic just went on the offense and hit a clean winner to win it, and just gave a massive flex on the crowd like this. And yeah, it was pretty epic, pretty amazing. But Djokovic is the guy out of this group of 8 that I would say, was pretty, he was the favorite to win the tournament, and he was looking good coming in to definitely make the semifinals. But we have the other guys who have made the semifinals, I would say, are fairly interesting. So let's go through a few of them. Why don't you say, looking at the matchups or looking at the results, and here's my opinion on them, I guess. So we are looking at the ATP Finals site here. Results. Let's look at the draw, I guess. So coming out of into the semifinals, we have the green group winner in Casper Ruud versus the red group runner-up, Andrei Rublev. Ruud versus Rublev on the top, and then red group winner, Djokovic versus green group runner-up, Taylor Fritz. So yeah, I think that Djokovic-Taylor Fritz matchup is super interesting, and I guess that happens tomorrow. And Casper Ruud and Rublev coming out of their groups is pretty impressive for those guys, because we all saw at the beginning of the week where I think it was Rublev who said, what am I doing in this group? We called group red group the group of death, with Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Rublev, and Djokovic. Rublev, I would say, the least likely guy to make it out of that group, and he comes out as the runner-up, which is pretty sweet for him. Beats Tsitsipas today, where Tsitsipas, I didn't get to watch this match, but 3 sets, and then Tsitsipas seemed again that he was not able to come up mentally with the game that he needed to get through this. And then he had some, I would say, interesting comments at the end saying that, he was the more creative player, felt like the better player, but, Rublev with his limited tools, I think he said, or something like that. The few tools he has, I think is what he said, was able to get over the line today. And he said, with the fact that Rublev was standing so close on the baseline, Tsitsipas didn't feel as comfortable getting to the net. And that's something that Tsitsipas should be doing a lot, is getting to the net with his athleticism, with his game. So yeah, that's a great win for Rublev coming out of that group. And then Casper Ruud beating Felix Auger-Aliassime and then beating Taylor Fritz, two guys who both probably hit bigger than him on these faster hard courts, but he's able to beat both of them. So they're huge wins for him. And then he lost to Nadal in a meaningless match before the semifinals, but that's an amazing result to come out as the winner of that group. Again, Casper Ruud has probably outperformed what people thought he would do on a surface that's not his favorite, and he's probably still not going to get the recognition he deserves as being, absolutely one of the top best players on the men's tour from certain trolls and haters. But as we know, Casper told me in Gstaad, anyone who thinks he's a pusher, he'll happily challenge to a match and we will see who's pushing then, was the quote. But let's look at some of these results. So more specifically, results from, I want to go back to a few interesting matches. One of these was Thursday. So yesterday, Taylor Fritz versus Felix Auger-Aliassime. This was a match that was super serve dominant, as they both have massive serves, and these quicker courts really reward that. And as we see in the first two sets, they're tie breaks and super close sets. It was a long match, almost 3 hours. And going into the third, it really felt like it was going to be, maybe another tiebreaker or super close. But Felix, the serve differential, I don't know if we can just pull up the stats here. It doesn't look like you can, but I know I tweeted out that I think Taylor won like 88% of his first serve points or something like that. And Felix was actually lower. He was down around 70 something. So it felt like through the match, Taylor actually had, you could either look at it as Taylor had the better serve or the better return. Like he handled Felix's serve better than Felix handled Taylor's. And was probably the difference in the end. I think Felix just felt more pressure going into that third set. In a couple of those early games, he got broken, and then that set seemed to go pretty quick. So in this match, Taylor was able to be probably the better player in the serve return part or subset of the match. And that, on a quick court like this, that's going to make the biggest difference for two guys who have huge serves and then also have huge ground games. Taylor's like more of the flat hitting, kind of like rally bot in a sense. And he has not a much, but he has a better backhand for sure than Felix. And Taylor was trying to get into those backhand to backhand cross court exchanges, while Felix was trying to not get in those, trying to get around his backhand and use his forehand. Where I would say Felix's forehand, when he's hitting through the ball and like moving his weight through it, is just as, if not better than Taylor's. And Felix's all court attacking game is definitely superior in my opinion. But Taylor was able to, in that third set, put more pressure on Felix's serve, get the break, and then just play really, really solid from the baseline. So that was a match where I felt like both guys had a good chance to win, and whoever came through would deserve it, and then could be super dangerous in these semifinals, which I think will be the case. Today, then, like I already talked about, we had Daniil Medvedev versus Djokovic. Djokovic beats Medvedev, and then it's not showing it here, or showing it up here. Stefanos loses to Andrei Rublev. So I talked earlier a couple of days ago about Nadal losing. Is that disappointing for him? Obviously it is, but the question is how much cause for concern is there with him losing 2 matches in a row and then beating Ruud? I think him beating Ruud shows, A, that he's got Ruud's number for sure, but B, that also, he can still get it done against the best guys in the world. He hasn't been feeling himself. He hasn't gotten physically to that peak, but his quote from the presser after, I think the Felix loss was, I might never get back to the top level of where I can play right now, which is with how old I am, with how my body allows me to train, but I'm going to die trying. So he was in the vintage Rafa mentality, just going to grind, and he's never going to give up. And if he doesn't feel like he can compete anymore, I'm sure he'll retire. And a lot of people think he's going to retire next year, but I think him beating Ruud and his forehand being a lot better showed that he still has a lot of options and he can get it done still. And I think we're going to see more of that in 2023 for sure. So predictions going to the semifinals. We got Djokovic versus Fritz. I think that's a tough match for Djokovic for sure. I think Fritz is the type of player on these hard courts who can take the racket out of anyone's hand. Obviously, Djokovic is probably the hardest player to have the racket taken out of his hand. But Fritz, if he serves super big and like he has, and he can just play a lockdown match, I don't see a reason why he doesn't have a good chance to win this. Likewise, Djokovic obviously has an amazing chance to win this match because he's the better player, and he's just been here so many times, and he's won this tournament 5 times. He's great indoors, and I think at this point in his career, the faster the surface, the better it is for Djokovic. So we'll see if Djokovic can outfox the bigger hitting Taylor Fritz and make Fritz get a really uncomfortable moving him around. And we'll see how much serving and volleying Djokovic does. We'll also see how many, how many different ways he likes to play in the rallies, which could be taking, slicing, taking Fritz off the court in slower but weirder and more exaggerated angles, and just not getting into huge baseline to baseline slugging rallies that Fritz will probably be happy to be in. So that's going to be a super interesting match to me. And then I think Rublev probably has the advantage over Ruud in their matchup, but it's pretty even. Two of the guys who have, I think, overachieved in these ATP finals. So don't have as much of a read on that match, but I'm definitely going to be tuned in to Djokovic Fritz, as I think that's a super compelling matchup, and it's going to be a good one. So those are my thoughts on the ATP finals, semifinals. What do you think? Do you think Medvedev? I think Medvedev's disappointed. It's a disappointing ATP finals for him, not getting to the semifinals, losing to Tsitsipas, losing to Djokovic. Did he lose to Rublev as well? I don't know where the did he get to lose all 3 matches? Let me just pull this up quick. I think he did. Yeah, he went 0-3. So that's very disappointing for Dino Medvedev, who's prided himself in the last few years as being probably the best or one of the best indoor hardcourt players. Weird tournament for him. So far, the recent fathers on the ATP Tour have not had good luck. So Medvedev is leading the way for that with Rafa Nadal as well, I guess. So he'll be disappointed with that. Rafa's disappointed with his tournament. Felix goes out to Taylor Fritz, his first time in the ATP finals. It's just good for him to be here. So that's an awesome goal achieved for him. And he obviously would have liked to make the semifinals, had a pretty good chance to, but lost to a slightly better Taylor Fritz on the day. And then Tsitsipas as well going out is that's an underachievement he would feel for himself as well. But I feel personally that this whole year for him has been a bit of an underachievement. And he said in the offseason he's going to really work on the serve return, which I think is a big deal, because if he can become even in the league, he's just like an average returner, I think, on the ATP Tour, maybe even like sub-average. But if he could become good on return, solid day in, day out, match in, match out, I think he could be the number 1 player in the world for sure. So, because I can see so many matches where he can't get the breaks when he's serving so well, and then that pressure just continually builds on his own serve, and then he'll crack. And he cracked too many times this year. But I think, we'll see how he addresses that in the offseason going into 2023. So that is my update. ATP semifinals at the ATP finals. Let's see what happens. That's why we play the game. So this has been The Slice. Thanks for being here, and we will see you next time on the show.